Wayne Gretzky to the Kings, August 9th, 1988. The day hockey changed forever. The Edmonton Oilers had just won their 4th Stanley Cup in 5 years, and yet they traded Wayne Gretzky, not for another superstar, not for a franchise-changing package, but for $15 million in cash, Jimmy Carson, Martin Gelinas, and 3 first-round picks spread across 1989, 1991, and 1993. Why? Owner Peter Pocklington needed money to pay off debts, to fund business deals, and so he sold the greatest player of all time. Before the trade, Gretzky had already scored over 1,800 points and redefined the sport. After it, he helped put hockey on the map in the United States. He drew celebrities, ESPN deals, expansion teams. He scored over 1,400 more points and brought the Kings to the Stanley Cup final in '93. The Oilers. They still had Mark Messier and a strong core, and they won one more cup in '90, but it never felt the same. The dynasty crumbled, and the fan base never fully forgave the front office. The great one was gone, and for nothing close to his worth. Phil Esposito to the Rangers. In 1975, the Boston Bruins traded away a legend, one of the most dominant scorers in NHL history. Phil Esposito, along with defenseman Carol Vadnais, was sent to the New York Rangers in exchange for Brad Park, Hertl, and Joe Zanussi. On paper, it looked fair. Park and Hertl were elite, intelligent, proven. But Boston wasn't just trading talent. They were trading an icon. Espo had led the league in goals 6 times in 7 years, including staggering seasons of 76 and 66 goals, and a 68-goal campaign just a few years later. He wasn't just scoring, he was rewriting record books. Even as he aged, he still delivered in New York, 34, 38, and 42 goals in his first 3 full seasons as a Ranger. That's not decline, that's still dominance. Park and Hertl contributed in Boston, but the trade marked the end of an era, the breakup of the big bad Bruins at their peak. Esposito wasn't just a star, he was the face of a franchise. And in shipping him out, Boston closed the book on one of the most fearsome teams in NHL history. Patrick Roy to the Avalanche. December 2nd, 1995. After giving up 9 goals and being left in net as punishment, Patrick Roy had enough. He skated past his coach, past his teammates, and told the GM, "I've played my last game for Montreal." 4 days later, he was gone. Montreal sent Roy and captain Mike Keane to the Colorado Avalanche for Jocelyn Thibault, Martin Rusinski, and Andrei Kovalenko. None of them became impact players. Thibault was a serviceable goalie. Rusinski had some flashes. But this wasn't a hockey trade. It was a meltdown. In Colorado, Roy turned a great team into a champion. He won 2 more Stanley Cups, another Conn Smythe, and gave the Avalanche instant credibility. Montreal, meanwhile, spiraled and didn't win another playoff series until 2002. To this day, Montreal fans still call it one of the darkest trades in franchise history, because they didn't just lose a superstar, they lost their identity. Joe Thornton to the Sharks. November 30th, 2005. The Bruins traded their captain and franchise center in the middle of his prime. The return? Marco Sturm, Brad Stewart, Wayne Primo. 3 mid-level players, none of them game changers. Thornton went to San Jose and instantly exploded. He scored 92 points in 58 games. He won the Hart Trophy, the only player in NHL history to win league MVP after being traded mid-season. Over the next 15 years, Thornton became one of the NHL's top playmakers. More than 1,100 points with the Sharks, a culture-setting leader. Boston? They missed the playoffs. They gave up an MVP for nothing close in return. Tyler Seguin to the Stars, drafted 2nd overall in 2010. Stanley Cup winner as a rookie. By age 19, in just his 2nd season, he scored 67 points and looked like a future franchise center. Then, Boston gave up on him. In 2013, the Bruins traded Seguin to Dallas for Louis Eriksson, Riley Smith, Matt Fraser, and Joe Morrow. Why? Character concerns. Translation, he liked to party, and the Bruins didn't like it. But Dallas didn't care. Seguin immediately became a star. Multiple 70-plus point seasons, dynamic chemistry with Jamie Benn, and one of the league's most consistent offensive weapons for the next decade. Boston? Smith had 1 strong season, but was traded after 2. Eriksson was up and down. Morrow and Fraser? Non-factors. The Bruins gave up a young superstar because of personality clashes, and got 4 quarters for $1. Jerome Iginla to Calgary. This one goes all the way back to 1995. The Dallas Stars were in win-now mode and wanted veteran help for a playoff run. So they traded Corey Millen and an 18-year-old WHL prospect, a recent first-round pick named Jerome Iginla, to the Calgary Flames for Joe Nieuwendyk. At the time, it barely made headlines. Neuendyk was a proven scorer and helped Dallas win a Stanley Cup in 1999, so it wasn't a complete loss, but what Calgary got in return turned into a franchise legend. Iginla became the heart and soul of the Flames for over 15 years. A two-time 50-goal scorer, over 600 career goals, 2 Rocket Richard trophies, an Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most respected leaders in modern NHL history. He captained Calgary to a Stanley Cup final in 2004, carried the offense for over a decade, and became one of the most beloved athletes in Canada. Dallas got short-term help. Calgary got a Hall of Famer before he ever played an NHL game. Zdeno Chara, plus second overall pick for Yashin. June 2001. The Islanders made a blockbuster deal. They sent Zdeno Chara, Bill Muckalt, and the number 2 overall pick, which became Jason Spezza, to Ottawa for Alexei Yashin. The gamble? Catastrophic. Chara became a Norris Trophy winner, Stanley Cup captain, and future Hall of Famer. Spezza became a 90-point center, one of the most productive Senators of all time. Yashin? He put up numbers, but was never a leader. And that $87.5 million contract? It crippled the franchise. The Isles gave up 2 franchise pieces for a flashy name with no payoff. One of the most lopsided deals of the modern era. Philip Forsberg to Nashville. In 2013, the Washington Capitals made a deal they'd regret for the next decade. They traded Philip Forsberg, a first-round pick and top forward prospect, to the Nashville Predators. In return, Martin Erat, a 31-year-old winger past his prime, and Michael Latta, a depth piece. The Capitals were chasing a playoff push. Erat was supposed to be the veteran boost. Instead, he flopped. In 62 games, Erat scored just 2 goals and requested a trade the next season. Latta, a fourth-liner who never stuck long-term. Forsberg, meanwhile, became everything the Caps were missing, a skilled, clutch winger. Multiple 30-goal seasons, franchise leader in goals, and the face of Nashville's offense for the next 10 years. It wasn't just a bad trade, it was one of the most lopsided prospect for veteran swaps in recent NHL history. And the Capitals got burned for a rental who never paid off. Taylor Hall for Adam Larsson, 1-for-1. That's how this trade is remembered, and not in a good way. In 2016, the Edmonton Oilers traded Taylor Hall, a former number 1 overall pick and elite winger, to the New Jersey Devils for Adam Larsson, a stay-at-home defenseman. Hall exploded in New Jersey. He scored 93 points in 2018, carried the Devils into the playoffs, and won the Hart Trophy as league MVP. Larsson, solid, but never more than a second-pair shutdown guy. Oilers fans were stunned. Even Hall said it himself. It's a tough pill to swallow. And it was. Edmonton gave up elite offense in exchange for grit and reliability. But in the modern NHL, that's not a fair trade. PK Suban for Shea Weber. June 2016, Montreal trades PK Suban to Nashville. Nashville trades Shea Weber to Montreal. A rare superstar for superstar deal. At first, people thought the Canadiens lost. Suban was younger, flashier, a former Norris winner. Weber was older, more physical, with a massive contract. But over time, the trade flipped. Suban declined fast. Within a few seasons, he was a shadow of his former self. By 2022, he was retired. Weber, despite injury issues, became the Canadiens' captain, defensive anchor, and led them to the Stanley Cup final in 2021. Not a total disaster, but Montreal traded flash for substance, and surprisingly, came out on top. Still, it was a risky swap, and it could have gone the other way. Mark Stone to the Golden Knights. In 2019, Ottawa traded their best player, again. Mark Stone, a Selke-caliber winger and heart of the franchise, was sent to the Golden Knights for Erik Brännström, Oscar Lindberg, and a second-round pick. Ottawa fans were told Brännström was the next Erik Karlsson. He wasn't. Meanwhile, Stone signed a long-term deal in Vegas, became captain, elite two-way forward, and the emotional leader of the locker room. Then, in 2023, he lifted the Stanley Cup. Ottawa traded a captain and playoff warrior for pieces that never panned out. The Senators lost a culture guy, and Vegas got a champion. Brett Hull to the Blues. In 1988, the Calgary Flames traded Brett Hull and Steve Bozek to St. Louis for Rob Ramage and Rick Wamsley. Ramage and Wamsley helped Calgary win the Cup in 1989, but Brett Hull became a generational sniper. He scored 86 goals in a single season, had 11 straight 30-plus goal seasons, and racked up over 700 career goals. He won the Hart Trophy in 1991 and became a Hall of Famer. Flames fans might say the Cup makes it worth it. But you don't just give up a 700 goal scorer for a depth defenseman and backup goalie. Adam Oates to St. Louis. Speaking of St. Louis, they fleeced another one. In 1989, the Red Wings traded Adam Oates and Paul McLean to the Blues for Bernie Federko and Tony McKegney. Federko was a legend, but he was nearing retirement. Oates, just getting started. He became one of the best passers in NHL history. Back-to-back 100-plus point seasons with Brett Hull on his wing. Over 1,400 career points, Hall of Fame. Detroit gave up a future superstar for short-term name value. A classic case of bad timing. Doug Gilmore to the Leafs, January 1992. The Calgary Flames pulled off what's now called the 10-player trade. They sent Doug Gilmore and 4 others to Toronto. In return, 5 players, none of whom made an impact. Gilmore became a Toronto legend. In 1992-93, he put up 127 points, won the Selke Trophy, and nearly led the Leafs to the Stanley Cup final. He was beloved, clutch, captain material. Calgary? Not one of the 5 players they got matched Gilmore's impact, a franchise-altering deal for the wrong franchise. Sergei Bobrovsky to Columbus. In 2012, the Philadelphia Flyers made a decision that would haunt them for years. They traded Sergei Bobrovsky, a 23-year-old with raw talent and starting potential, to the Columbus Blue Jackets for a second-round pick and 2 fourth-rounders. Why? Because they had just signed Ilya Bryzgalov to a massive $51 million contract and believed he was the long-term answer in net. He wasn't. Bryzgalov's time in Philly was defined by inconsistent play and off-ice distractions. Bobrovsky, meanwhile, exploded the moment he got a real shot in Columbus. In his first season as a starter, he won the Vezina Trophy. Then, he won another in 2017. He became one of the most athletic, high-ceiling goaltenders of the decade, routinely stealing games and posting elite numbers. After moving to Florida, he led the Panthers to 2 Stanley Cups, putting up one of the most dominant playoff stretches in recent memory. As for the Flyers, they've been through over a dozen goalies since the trade, and they're still looking for a true franchise starter. A classic case of giving up too early and watching greatness happen somewhere else. Ryan O'Reilly to Buffalo. In 2015, the Colorado Avalanche made a bold decision. They traded 24-year-old center Ryan O'Reilly, a key piece of their core, to the Buffalo Sabres. In return, Colorado received Nikita Zadorov, JT Compher, and Mikhail Grigorenko. At the time, it looked like a fair haul, size, youth, and potential. But none of the return pieces developed into stars. Zadorov was physical, but inconsistent. Grigorenko never stuck. Compher had flashes, but was more of a middle six grinder than a game changer. Meanwhile, O'Reilly just kept getting better. In Buffalo, he became a consistent 60-point two-way center, despite being on a struggling team. Then came the 2018 trade to St. Louis, and everything changed. He became the heartbeat of the Blues, leading by example with elite defensive play, face-off dominance, and clutch scoring. He won the Selke Trophy, the Conn Smythe Trophy, and helped deliver the Blues their first Stanley Cup in franchise history in 2019. O'Reilly wasn't just a great player, he was a culture changer, and Colorado let him go, right before he hit his prime. The Avs eventually bounced back and built a cup winner of their own. But this one still stinks, because Ryan O'Reilly was the kind of guy you build around, and they shipped him out too soon. Thomas Hertl to Vegas. In 2024, the San Jose Sharks pulled the trigger on a move that signaled a full-scale rebuild. They traded longtime fan favorite and top-line center Thomas Hertl to the Vegas Golden Knights, a team built to win now. In return, the Sharks received a 2025 first-round pick and prospect David Edstrom, a 2023 first-rounder with upside, but far from a sure thing. That was it. For Sharks fans, it was a gut punch. Hertl had been with the team for over a decade, a consistent 20 to 30 goal scorer, a locker room leader, and one of the last emotional links to the franchise's better years. Meanwhile, Hertl slotted seamlessly into Vegas's top 6, adding scoring depth, experience, and exactly the kind of two-way center you need for a deep playoff run. And with term left on his contract, the Knights didn't just land a rental. They secured a piece for the long haul. San Jose, on the other hand, is left hoping Edstrom develops into something meaningful, and that the first rounder lands. But if he doesn't, and if Vegas goes on another deep playoff tear, this deal could quickly join the list of painful rebuild misfires, the kind that keeps a team stuck in the basement for years.